Hi YouTube and welcome to another tutorial. Today we're gonna make these coasters over here. Now they're made out of natural vegetable tan leather as always. There won't be a PDF pattern since it's pretty simple. You just need to cut out 11 by 11 square and proceed with the tutorial. But on the other hand, if you want to order these or other that are coming on the next videos, it's always available on my website, which is linked down in the description below. But anyways, before we proceed, I will ask you to like or dislike this video, subscribe for more content, and without further ado, let's continue and build these coasters. Alrighty, so to make these coasters, we will firstly use, as usual, the natural vegetable tan leather, which is not prepared in any way. I've already cut out a needed piece for a 4-piece coaster set, and also we'll be using this 11 by 11 cardboard template. The reason being why it's 11 by 11 because the press template itself is 10 by 10 and the finished product is about 10.6, so we still have a little bit of a wiggle room to cut out, to polish, and to stitch and everything else. And yeah, and the finished size is 10 by 6, I mean 10.6 centimeters. So next thing that we have to do is to cut out all of the square pieces from this natural vegetable tan leather, and afterwards I'll come back to you when it's done. Next, step number 2. We will need some sort of a water container, some water of course as well, because we will be soaking those 8 pieces in this water before we proceed with pressing it under a clicker press or whatever you call it. But yeah, you just take your piece, let's wiggle around the water a little bit, and put it in face down like that. It doesn't really matter if it gets wet on the other side, like that, and just set it aside. And do this with all 8 pieces, after which we need to wait. I usually wait around 5 to 10 minutes for the water to soak in the leather. This helps us get the ornament that we're pressing in, press in a little deeper because it softens the leather. Now that all of your pieces for the coasters are wet and ready, for my particular press, I need to take a little bit of a support. Then I have this cork coaster that I usually just put under, on top of this wooden piece. Then I put on the leather that's gonna be pressed on. Then of course the ornament. Try to make it as middle as possible. This will actually help us out later on in the build when we need to cut off a few millimeters of the edges. So I find the middle approximately like this, and then I take another piece like this and just put it on top, and just simply put it underneath your pressing machine like so. And the only thing we have to do is just press it down and hold it for at least, well, what I usually do is just hold it for at least like 15 to 30 seconds with pulsating presses like that. And another tip that I can give you, after you do that for 20 seconds, just flip it around, put it back in, and repeat the process of pressing again. This will make sure that all of the corners and all of the pieces all around the coaster are evenly pressed in, and yeah, and that looks nice. So let's proceed with all 8 pieces. I will do that, and I'll come back to you after that. So now that everything's in printed and turned out pretty, next step, what we need to do is using this cork coaster that I have, or if you have this this thing, but a little bit a different shape for the corners, because this is not for the corners. Yeah, we need to round up the corners. So let me show you quickly what I mean by that. So I line up the cork coaster with the leather corners and leather edges, like so. Yeah, and then just simply go around like so. There we go. It's a little bit uneven, but that doesn't really matter, because after we round up all of the corners here, using this apparatus, we will be tracing it around like that and trimming off basically 2 millimeters off of the edges. And yeah, this will even it out and will look a little bit more pretty. So next step, rounding up the corners, and when it's time to use this thing and cut off the 2 millimeters, I'll come back to you. Okay, so now that we've rounded out the corners, next step, as I mentioned before, we need to, using this apparatus, remove 2 millimeters from the edges. A reason being, we'll go in between 2 pieces of leather like this, basically making a sandwich. And we need the edges to be even and stick out just the right amount from this side over here, because if it'll stick out a little bit too much after we've done with the edges, this part will be loose and won't look aesthetically pleasing. So yeah, we need to tighten down the edges as much as possible, and then after we glue it in and stitch it all up, it will round up and look like one piece. Now, using the ruler, we need to measure 2 millimeters. I have 3 here. Now what we need to do is just basically go around like this. There we go. And afterwards, after we've done tracing out the line for all remaining 7 pieces, just trim it off with your knife, and yeah, then it'll be time for us to actually dye it. Time to dye everything in color. So I will be using, this time at least, I thought that an appropriate color will be red for these coasters. So we'll be using a red dye. Only thing that you have to know here is to basically dye the way you want to dye the leather and leave it rest until the next day. Reason being, if we proceed with wet leather, the holes, for example, if we make holes on wet leather, they'll be all crooked, and you're risking on tearing the leather itself apart, and which will result in a ruined coaster for this example. So yeah, let's dye it red. Alrighty, now that everything has been dyed and dried and it's nice and crispy, next thing what we have to do is, using this thing, the distance between the prongs is 3 millimeters, Hello, camera. And yeah, simply just trace it all around for all 8 of these pieces. And after you've done that, just make holes. Alright, so let's do that real quick. There we go. So, next thing on the agenda. Next thing on the agenda is actually gluing these pieces all together. And for that, we will be using these cork coasters, trays, or whatever you want to call them. So, as I've mentioned before, the principle is fairly easy. We just use a sandwich principle. We take one piece, put the cork on top, and second piece of leather on top as well. And then we just glue it together, wait for the glue to set, and then the next step is gonna be stitching everything together. Alright, that took longer than I expected, but all 4 of the coasters are finished. Well, finished meaning I've finished stitching them up. And yeah, that actually took me around 4 hours to do. Reason being, it's a little bit thick, and yeah, it was really hard to punch through with a needle. I've hurt my fingers. But anyways, these are done. The next step, and there are actually only, I would say, 3 more steps left before we finish. So the first step would be using the sanding machine or your hands and sanding paper. Sand the edges, of course, and make them nice and even and shiny and round on the corners. So yeah, for this I will be using 1000, 1.5 and 2000 grit sanding paper, and after that it'll be time to level the edges as well. So sand and then just bevel the edges. Those 2 simple steps left to do, and afterwards technically is gonna be finishing up, applying all the oils and filaments and stuff like that. So yeah, let's get on to it. Next steps. Red dye. We will be dyeing the polished edges. As you can see, they are not quite red over here, so we need to make them red. After that is done, we will proceed with beveling and burnishing, just burnishing the edges with Tokonol and the burnishing machine. So those 2 things, and the coasters are gonna be finished. Only thing left to do is gonna be applying the oil and the protective layer. Okay, now that the edges are nice and finished, shiny, even, glossy, and prepared to be used, only thing left to do is to apply some oil and anti-weathering prevention layer thing, aka tank coat. Reason being why we're using tank coat is since these are coasters, they'll be absorbing a lot of water, heat, cold, other elements, so we need to protect them, because if we don't do that, after a certain amount of time they're gonna worn out and look pretty ugly. So before we apply tank coat, it is crucial to apply neat's foot oil. So just apply a good amount of oil, waited for it to dry a little bit, and then a very thin layer of tank coat. This is a concentrate and it doesn't need to be applied too much. Alrighty, now that I'm applying a last coat of tank coat, I will wrap this thing up. The coasters are finished. It took me around I would say 8 hours in total to complete, since everything is handmade. stitched and everything together. But yeah, next thing that's gonna be on the agenda in a few weeks, we're doing the same coasters but round. I already prepared a cutting die for it, and this is gonna be a 10 centimeter diameter, and we'll be using another template for the ornaments. And this is gonna be the template, and the template is around 9 centimeters, so it should technically fit inside of this die, as you can see right here. So yeah, next video is gonna be round coasters. I think those will turn out even more pretty. But anyways, thank you very much guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. The coasters are finished, and yeah, don't forget to like or dislike, subscribe, and I will see you on another one.